this video is sponsored by OneFootball. If you need a new football app on your phone, OneFootball is the place to go. You can select Celtic as your favourite team, and that'll give you all the latest Celtic news, transfer speculation, fixtures, and even live match updates if for any reason you can't make or watch a game. You can also add widgets to your home screen to keep up to date with Celtic's next fixture, who it's against, what the kick-off time is, all that stuff. And you can track leagues from across the world, league tables, top goal scorers, you name it, you'll find it all there on the OneFootball app. You can download it by clicking the link in the description of this video. It's free, absolutely free, wherever you get your apps on your phone. And it's a great way to support Celtic Fans TV. So if you haven't downloaded it already, please click the link below and get involved. What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. Champions League fever has gripped us. It's 2 days away from the Champions League group stage draw, and I've got Stuart and Martin here with me to look back at some of our favourite Champions League moments. So we're going to look at 7 categories. Those are on your screen now. We're going to go around the guys and get their favourite Celtic goal, their favourite night overall, their favourite single moment of elation. That's on a Celtic Champions League night, by the way. Their favourite individual performance from a Celtic player on a Champions League night, the best opposing player performance, the most heartbreaking moment, and finally, the best atmosphere. So to kick us off, Martin, we're going to start with favourite Celtic Champions League goal. Who are you going with for this one?
I remember Nakamura goal vividly. A player that we all absolutely loved, admired. We knew what he was capable of. He came up against the mighty Man United, who swaggered into Celtic Park and thought it'd be a formality. They come in with players like Ferdinand, Vidic, Ronaldo, Scholes, Giggs, Zaha, Rooney, and they just thought, that the outcome was inevitable, and wasn't necessarily the best of games, but Celtic did enough to stay in the game. And then it wasn't just a free kick, it was a free kick and a half. And you look at the players that were in the wall and you think they should have been able to defend any free kick with the experience that was in that wall. Nakamura circa 30 yards out, 80 minutes into the game as well. Just a perfect time to score a goal where you think there's no way back for the opposition. And we qualified for the knockout stage. So the significance of that goal as well was huge against the mighty Man United. The English would tell you that was their main team, the team that had dominated in England for so long, and they came up to Celtic and Nakamura sent them back down the road with 0 points. So for me, that's a goal I remember, walking home and waking up for several days after that. I just couldn't get that goal out of my mind and watched it 1,000 times. So Nakamura for me.
Yeah, what a great shout. I think that is one of the best free kicks ever taken. And I might be biased, but the trajectory, the players that are in the wall, the standard of the goalkeeper, the stature of the game, as you say, that we didn't know at the time when the goal went in, but that goal was going to secure Celtic passes to the last 16 for, I think, the first time in our history in that format, in the Champions League format. It's one of the most unbelievable free kicks I've ever seen. A special goal. Stuart,
I was just going to say, it's the fact, you knew what it was going to do. Mm-hmm. You knew where it was going to go. The keeper knew where it was going to go, and it still went in. Such was the class and Aka when it came to those situations. And genuinely, at that period, watching Celtic, when a free kick in that particular area of the park, so slightly to the right of centre, you would think, this is probably got more likelihood of getting in the goal than a penalty. I remember thinking that way as a Celtic fan at that time. And Martin, you've absolutely cut my grass there. That was going to be the goal I was going to pick. But I'll tell you what I'll do instead. No, don't worry about it. I'll go for my second one, right? And that was Chris Commons, that penalty hit where he leathered it. He scalped it and it scraped the underside of the bar and it bounced down off the ground and then up into the roof of the net. Celtic Park into a frenzy.
Spartak Moscow.
Spartak Moscow, and that was a goal that sent us to the last 16 as well, I believe.
Yeah.
That was a special night. I can remember. I was covering that game in the kind of mix zone of the Champions League, which obviously was heavy buzz, man. Covered Parkhead for a Champions League game with it plastering me and all that. I think I've still got it in a box somewhere. And I remember I was doing it for Radio France, and I said that he scalped the ball with furious venom, right? As if Radio France listeners are going to know what the word scalped means. You know what I mean? But I was just buzzing, man. Absolutely class. That was another brilliant night at Parkhead. The games weren't brilliant, but it's like, in those games, I think it was the moments you remember.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like some like the Man City game, it's like the whole game was like proper end-to-end, real entertainment, whatever. In those games, it wasn't so much of that. It was quite tense at times, but those moments were just so special, man.
And that was a late goal. That was 80. I think it was 80 minutes, 85 minutes that goal as well, wasn't it? So
aye,
perfect
right,
time to score.
Aye, absolutely. I think so much of football. I always say it about players when they leave Celtic, you remember them in moments, and none more so than in these big European nights. My favourite goal is a goal against Man United, but it's maybe lesser in terms of significance. But it's probably the first season that we made the group stages after I got a season ticket, so I'd have been about 14-year-old, and it's Scott McDonald's chip in the one each game. Executed it brilliantly. It was Ben Foster that was in goals, though, not quite Edwin van der Sar. It was Ben Foster that night, but it just kind of, I think it maybe deflected, the pass deflected into him, and he controlled it really, really well. And then he went for this lob, and I was right behind it, and I was just bedlam. And as I say, because that was like one of my first Champions League games as a season ticket holder, that goal really stands out for me. And I remember being gutted because in a similar vein to as you described with the Nakamura game there, Martin, Gordon Strachan's teams had a way of hanging in there. It was often not pretty football, but they had a way of hanging in there. And in Europe, it was so effective because we made the last 16 in back-to-back seasons, obviously. We didn't do very well in this season's group stage, where we drew one each of Man U, but we were nearly there. And again, that was a late goal, but this time for Man United, when Ronaldo hit the shot for distance and Boric pied it, remember, and Ryan Giggs nodded an equaliser.
Yeah.
I remember being absolutely gutted because I thought, having not been there for the Nakamura night where we beat them, that I was going to get my own. But it wasn't.
The Nakamura one, that came the season that I had my season ticket, because I always said when I left school that I was going to, when I got my first job, I'd get a Celtic season ticket, and I did, and it so happened it was that season. But like, obviously, no so good a moment for Boric there, but I think you've got to give him a shout out, because even after that Nakamura free kick in the game you were talking about, Martin, you just think, oh no, it's Celtic or again. Man United come up the other end, down in the box, penalty kick, and I remember the look on Neil Lennon's face. He's just like, no again, man. Like, you could see everybody was like thinking, oh, this is just the usual, man. Last minute heartbreak. It's going to happen again. Then the holy goalie, what a save. Luis Saha, decent penalty, no terrible, but the holy goalie stepped up, made the save, got the Celts to the last 16.
And Saha had another chance that night. I don't know if you remember. He thought he was offside, and he wasn't. And you know, had he continued playing, you know, he had an easy finish. But the gods were watching down us.
Like the whistle, mate. Always.
Aye,
absolutely. So there you go. Martin has gone with Nakamura's free kick against Man United. Stuart has gone with Chris Commons' penalty against Spartak Moscow, and I've gone Scott McDonald's chip against Man U as well. Right, next up, it is favourite Champions League night. Now, I believe, Stuart, you've ruled it picking the 2-1 game against Barcelona. Is that right?
Just because it's obvious, man. Like,
cliche
I'm on
answer.
25th anniversary. Like,
cliche
it was
answer,
fairy tale stuff. I can remember the Football Manager account on Twitter. Like, it typed a graphic where it was like 19% possession, 2-1, and it just wrote the word glitch. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's what that night was. Like, Fraser Forster, obviously, like Grand Muraya, the Great Wall. That was one of those storied nights that only happens to a club like Celtic Football Club. So I kind of think it's that much an obvious answer. We should rule it out. Would anybody not have gone for that answer? Like, so be honest around the panel. Would you have chosen something else? Because if you would, then fair enough. But I think that's the obvious one to go for.
No, I would have gone for it, and it may or may not appear in another category.
No, I think it's undoubted. I mean, there's nothing will ever come close to that. What a night! What a special night!
Yeah, Stuart, do you want to give us yours? You'll start with you this time.
I mean, I was obviously at that Man United game, so that's particularly special to me for that reason. But in terms of watching on the telly, I think when we beat Juve, because I was young then, and I can just remember thinking, how is this happening? Like, and it was the way that the game went, the ebb and flow, obviously so many goals. And I can just remember it felt like one of those nights, like, because when you're young, there's certain nights happen when you're young that make you fall in love with the game even more. You know what I mean? I think as you get older, you kind of get more cynical about it. But like when you're young, it's like all about the sense of adventure. Like the UEFA Cup run that we had was obviously very much full of that kind of spirit. But I think that Juve 4-3 game was like, and especially when you contrast it with the away game where we get cheated right at the end of the game, which basically knocked us out of the chance of qualifying, when I think, to be honest, over what we'd done over the 6 games, we probably deserved it. But that game where we beat Juve at home was special stuff, and some really good goals in it as well.
Aye, Martin, that game is from a time as well where Celtic had been in the wilderness in terms of the elite level of European football for years, and that was the first time we had made the Champions League in the Champions League era, and we certainly made a mark that season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's special memories for me. First Champions League campaign, and we had knocked out Ajax to get through, and a famous 3-1 victory away. So that was totally unexpected. I know we went through with skin our teeth as it so happened, because they were victors at Celtic Park in the second leg. But we go to Juve, and what a brilliant start. I remember the game like it was yesterday. I expected Juventus fans to welcome us, and it was quite the opposite. A really hostile atmosphere at the game. And we went 2-0 down away at Juventus, and then got it back to 2-2. And we were absolutely sensational on the night, and then we're cheated by a penalty. And in the latter stages of the game, the guy's name was Amoruso, all the names he could have had. I just remember Martin O'Neill's reaction. But the game that Stuart's talking about, when we get them back to Celtic Park, we still had a chance to progress. I mean, that particular year, we finished on 9 points. We won our home games. And the disappointment that year was we had a game against Rosenborg. We were a bit pensive. We got beat 2-0. That was the opportunity. Go to Rosenborg, and Harold Bratback came back to haunt us. But the thing that really annoyed me, and I'm going to talk about a little bit more later on, hopefully, is we never played Moravcik enough that year. But he did play in that last game, that 4-3 game. And he was brilliant, and what a special night, 4-3, and it felt, I think Juve were up potential already through, but they came to win the game. They played a strong team. They rested 1 or 2 players, but overall their team was really strong. They went ahead in the game, and Sutton and Moravcik in particular that night were very, very good, and were unbelievably unlucky not to go through. Had Rosenborg equalised late into the game away to Porto, we would have went through, but we went out on 9 points. But what a great debut campaign to get 9 points, win the 3 home games. And it did. You went back to that being cheated in the first game. Had that not happened, we got a 2-2. We were through in our first venture into the Champions League.
See, that just goes to show how your mind goes, because I remember that as kind of being the end, almost like the story, because that's the bit that I remember as being the heartbreak. So it's funny that that's the first game, because that's not how I remember that campaign. I remember that being after. See, the other thing about that, Martin, is Celtic Park in those days was such a fortress. I can remember watching that Juve home game back, and Alessandro Del Piero, who is a guy who, even by that point in his career, had done everything in the game that you could possibly imagine, right? He walks out the tunnel, and if you watch when the camera is on the tunnel as he walks out of Celtic Park, and he goes like that. And it's just like he's blown away by the atmosphere, by the magic. It's almost like an electricity that gathers round about that stadium in those kind of nights, and it still happens now. Yeah. And I can just remember being captured by the fervour of that. But it's funny how time alters the perception of stuff, man. You've got some memory, by the way, for those things, man. Absolute statue. I love it.
Well, that campaign, we won 4-3, as you said. We won 1-0 and 1-0 in the other 2 home games. And in the away games last time, we went to Porto. We got a trouncing in Porto. We got beat 3-0. I remember I did the day trip. I remember coming home on the flight thinking, I shouldn't have bothered. It was one of those trips absolutely destroyed. But the Rosenborg game was the one, that 2-0 defeat. We went over there genuinely thinking we had a chance of beating them, and had we come away with a draw, that would have been enough. So Rosenborg was the one. But O'Neill at the time, he loved playing his flair players at home, but away, even domestically, if he go to Tynecastle, whatever, he wouldn't play the likes of Moravcik. He'd maybe play 1 flair player. He wouldn't play 2 flair players. And I just wish, I remember at the time, and I remember it now, I just wish he'd played Moravcik a bit more in that particular campaign, because what a player, what a special player he was. But as it so happens, on that final night, he dropped Petrov to play Moravcik. And imagine having that dilemma. Who do you play with Petrov or Moravcik? Particularly when you're going away from home and you're thinking, we need to keep this tight. So I understand it. I understand why the great man made that decision. But I was a huge fan of Moravcik, which I think had he played in Rosenborg, we would have got a result.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to confirm, Martin, are you going favourite night, Juve as well?
I've got two cracking nights. I hope you don't mind. But do you want to go first so I don't steal one of yours?
I can go first. I've waited a lot of these in favour of games that I've been at. There's maybe one or two later on that stand out as when I was a young kid, and I remember vividly watching them on TV. But my favourite night, I had to get this game in somewhere, was the 3-3 game against Man City. Because that again was like, hadn't made the group stages for a few years, first time under Rodgers, but playing Guardiola's Man City. And I was buzzing to see Celtic play against the Guardiola team. And what a start we made to the game. But it's hands down the best game of football I've ever witnessed. I've ever been in attendance to witness, because it was just so pure. It was 3-3. I don't think there was any bookings in the game. I don't remember the physio ever been on. It was just free flowing, end to end, the technical level for both teams, because we were really, really good that night. It was a joy to take in, and as I say, like, I think it'll go for me to like be in attendance at a better game of football, a better spectacle than that, because the level that night was brilliant.
I can remember that Guardiola team. I don't think they had been beaten up until that point. No. And it was almost as if Brendan Rodgers set the template that English teams then took. And Man City didn't win the league that season. And I think it was as a result of we were the first team to derail that juggernaut as it was making its way. See, the other thing I'd say about that game is Celtic have won loads of games in Europe. But I think in terms of punching above our weight, all those kind of factors weighed in, that for me, pound for pound, if you like, is Celtic's best European display against a heavyweight in the modern era. Because I think it was, as you say, the pure nature, the fact we stood toe-to-toe, traded blows with them, played in such a brilliant way, as you say, a great spectacle. And it wasn't as if you were sort of ruin the concession of the goals or anything. You were backing the team to go up again and go at them again and score. And I think that's Celtic's best European display of the modern era, even though it didn't end up in a win.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Martin, give us yours.
I'm probably wrong, Paul, right? Because actually my memory is not that great. I remember what happened the last couple of weekends, but obviously you remember some of these fond memories, don't you? They never leave you. But I think Sterling got booked that night. And I could be wrong. Right, I'll check out later on. But I think he got booked for petulance, and that's just Sterling. Because I remember being me and my wee boy watching Sterling, thinking that's Sterling, and we sit half the line, and he was quite close to us for half the game, and he was getting frustrated that night. And I think he might go booked, but it wasn't a dirty game, as you say. It was just a game filled with skill, wasn't it, for the full 90 minutes?
You're a legend, Martin. I love that. see if Raheem Sterling get booked in that game, you're my new hero, mate.
I'm going to high five myself. I'm right. I'm probably wrong.
Need to look that up. As a side note, by the way, I was actually really impressed with Raheem Sterling that night, because I thought he's not going to fancy this. He's going to walk it like Del Piero did, and think, not the night in this atmosphere. But he was actually really good. He impressed me. Sorry, good. Martin, on you go.
So I know we've got one later on the atmosphere, and I'll focus on home games for atmosphere, but I thought for nights, I was going to focus on away games that I was lucky enough to be at, and no surprise that they're, in the Champions League, we've not had a lot of away victories, have we? They're few and far between, so I've gone with a couple of games, one being a victory and one being a draw. So first one, a draw away at the new camp. And I remember the only player I could recognise in the pitch was John Hartson, because he was the size of me, because you're that far up, so you don't know who everybody is. You just see these wee pins miles away. There's planes flying underneath you, you're that high up.
It's a beauty, isn't it?
It is, But I remember John Hartson, and because he scored, that was John Hartson that scored. So you're up against Puyol, you're up against Deco, Eto'o, Ronaldinho. They brought on Iniesta that night, and we brought on Kamara. So that just told you how far apart we were with regards to strength.
Henri Kamara, what a player.
74,000 fans there, special occasion. Now, we celebrated like we'd won the World Cup, and we actually went out that night. We got knocked out of the Champions League, but we celebrated for days after that. we couldn't be hungover because we didn't stop drinking for days celebrating. But what that result did get us was it gave us a chance to finish in third place, and we didn't finish in third place as it so happened. But it was just massive. It was our first away point, and it was our 9th away game in the Champions League. So it was our third campaign. We hadn't managed to get a single point in the previous 8 games. You're away to Barcelona and you're thinking there's absolutely no chance we're getting anything here in our 9th game. So it was going to be 3 campaigns with no points away, and we got that precious single point that kept us in my chance of getting third place. So it was a special night for me. And the second one had even more significance. It was a victory. So our first victory in the Champions League versus Spartak Moscow. So not one of the big teams, but nevertheless we weren't winning away from home. So match day 2, so early in the campaign, and in a group with Barcelona, Benfica, and Spartak Moscow, in a 3-2 victory. Now we had been 2-1 down on the night, so he thought it was going to be an inevitable defeat. And we came back to 2-2, and then we got a very, very late winner with Samaras to win 3-2, and it was our first away win in the Champions League group stage. So a special night that I remember very well.
Mm-hmm. That's that. See if I would watch that game in a house. I wasn't in Moscow, but see if I'd been in Moscow, that Samaras header would be my favourite Celtic Champions League goal. Unbelievable. I remember running about the living room as if we'd won the Champions League when it went in. Absolutely.
I was working that night, and so I couldn't see the game. And I remember my pal going, "Oh, aye, Celtic won the night," and I went, "Aye, all right." I was like, "Aye, okay."
I'll be home in the Champions League. No,
aye, no chance, no danger, man. And then I saw the goals after it, and I thought, and it was all quite weird. It was an artificial surface, as well. It's like, and I can picture that header. See Samaras as well. I mean, I have never done a bigger about turn on a football player than I did on him, because first 6 months to a year he was at Celtic, I was like, who's he? He's lazy. He does nothing, man. What does he offer? And then he became the outlet, the wide target man that would relieve all the pressure whenever we were up against it in Europe, and became the pivotal figure and the teams that ended up succeeding and going beyond where Celtic had gone before at that point. So It's amazing how you can do such an about. I've genuinely, in one footballer, I've never done a bigger U-turn, because Samaras obviously became my hero for a wee while. You know what I mean? Watching what he was doing with us in Europe.
Aye, he liked to drag the ball, didn't he? Give me the ball, and he would drag it away from a couple of players with his big long legs and just keep possession for.
Put the team up the pitch.
Aye.
Yeah.
I loved Samaras, man. Absolutely loved him. Used to defend him all the time because he was a bit.
Even in the first 6 months when he was just lazy and rubbish.
Aye, do you remember his debut against Kilmarnock? He took the ball at the halfway line, skinned about 5 players and scored.
Well, I suppose.
With the orange boots on, brilliant.
He missed a penalty at Ibrox, didn't he? And a lot of fans never forgave him for that in the 0-0 way. That was
New Year's Day game.
No, the New Year's Day game was the one where he scored twice, and then it was like 5 months later he went to Ibrox. Right. He scored a penalty at New Year, and he put it on the same. He went the same way. And that penalty would have won us the league, and McGregor saved it.
That's right, into Celtic end,
Yeah. Right, so there you go. Stuart's gone 4-3 Juve. I've gone 3-3 against Man City. And with Martin's 2, I'm going to take the 1-1 against Barcelona in the Nou Camp. Right, next up is favourite individual performance from a Celtic player. I'll go first with this one. It's the 3-3 City game again, actually. And it's Moussa Dembele, because that night was when you just thought he's not going to be here for very long at all. And maybe looking at his career now, you think he'd maybe have got to a bit of a higher level. We expected him to go another step on for Lyon, but that night, I mean, I think he was only 19, 20 years old. And he was absolutely unbelievable up against that Man City team. By the way, I had a look. I don't think there was any yellow cards. Stuart, did you have a look?
So did I. But
so did Leonard. My wee boys just told me I was wrong. He just told me I was wrong. Mate. Sorry, Paul.
That's all right. Dembele that night, unbelievable. One of the best performances. Again, I've weighted it because I was there. Unbelievable performance. Held the ball up so well, which is massive for Celtic in these games when you play the big teams. And unlike the domestic games, you don't have 70% of the ball. And somebody to get you up the pitch, he was so strong. Scored 2 goals. The third goal in the night and his second goal just after half time, the sort of overhead kick on the turn, absolutely unbelievable. So that's the performance I've gone for. as my favourite individual Champions League Celtic performance.
So Martin, Kieran Tierney was brilliant that night.
He was, aye. He was really good. Martin, we'll go to you this time before we come to Stuart. Is there a single performance that stands out above any else?
This is single. We're not looking for a player here, Abby. We're just looking for a team performance.
No, individual player performance. Sorry,
individual. So there will be a bit of repetition in this stuff, won't there? Because we'll remember the same big game. So I've got two again, but I did, just briefly for the first one, and I did have Lubo. That was his first Champions League start, that Juventus game, and I thought he was just sensational. He was involved in a couple of the goals. He made some of the opposition players look like they've never played football before. So that was a special night for Lubo, and I fell in love with him even more. He's one of my favourite players of all time, even to this day. So that particular game, but there's another one that you may or may not have remembered, but I remember it really well, was match day 4, 2003-2004, Liam Miller. So this was a game. This was a game.
Shout.
We played against Anderlecht. I'm sure you all remember it. And I start talking and Alex Ferguson came up to watch one of the Belgian players. I can't remember the player's name, but he came up and after the game he went down the road.
I think it might have been Company.
It might have been Vincent Company.
Aye. He ended up at Man City, obviously.
He pretty much took Liam Miller down the road because he was that good. But we went. There's only on 4 occasions out of all the games we've played in the Champions League. So we've played 10 campaigns, 60 games, and only on 4 occasions have we won by 2 games or more. 2 goals or more. When I say more, it's only once we've won by 3 goals. But this was one of those games we won by a couple of goals. But we went 3-0 up. We went 2-0 up really early on. Liam Miller got one of the goals. We were 3-0 up, I think, after 28 minutes, certainly within half an hour. And we just blew them away in the first half. Liam Miller was involved. He scored one. He was involved in one other goals. And in the second half, when he came back out, he created a couple of brilliant chances. We should have been 5 or 6-0 up. He was involved in absolutely everything. And I remember him going off the pitch. He took a knock and he went off the pitch. And it was at the halfway line on the north stand side. So, and he had to walk all the way around behind the Lisbon line, go all the way around the dugout. And the standing ovation lasted the whole time that he hobbled around the pitch. Very rarely have I seen a standing ovation like that, where everybody was on their feet and clapping as much and as hard as they could. Every hair on both my arms was standing up. I just thought a special moment, and every single second of that was earned by Liam Miller that night. What a fantastic player! And no surprise, he almost immediately went away down to Man United. And what a sin that he didn't get the right game time. But he was trying to come up against players like Beckham and that down at Man United. So maybe not the right move for him. And I just wish he'd stayed at Celtic because he was a great talent. And that wasn't a total surprise for us to see Liam Miller do that, because he had been performing at a reasonably good level, but that was his best game, and to blow them away in that first 30 minutes was predominantly down to Liam Miller. What a performance!
Such a good shout, and I think it raises an interesting point. Like, nowadays, it seems like Celtic players do get, maybe in League Cup games or whatever, they get an opportunity in the first team quite readily. It seemed, and I don't know if this is just like recency bias or whatever, but it seemed like back then it was harder for young players to get a crack, but when they did, they really seized it. You think of John Kennedy, you think of David Marshall, you think of the beginning of Mark Burchell's career, you think Sean Maloney, like there's Aidan McGeady as well at Hearts, that game that he had in his debut. Like there's so many, like when you look back then, so many of the young players that came into the team had the ability to impact it immediately. And now it seems a bit more hit or miss whether the youngsters sort of reach the mark. Obviously, you get exceptions to the rule like Kieran Tierney or whatever. But back then, it seemed that if you did eventually make your way to the first team, then like you were ready for it and you were going to seize that opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
Aye, that's a great shout, Martin. I do remember that game. Larsson scored the wee glancing header, didn't he? Off an Agat cross. But Liam Miller's goal was excellent. On his left foot, volley across the keeper. Yeah. Unbelievable finish. And he was amazing that night. And of course, tragic that he's no longer with us. Lost his life at such a young age as well. Bonus points for who scored the Anderlecht goal that night.
Aruna Dindan.
Yes.
Oh, very
Missed
good.
The penalty, didn't he? Missed the penalty, put in the rebound.
Aye.
Yeah.
Very good.
Right, Stuart, give us yours.
Right, so I'm now having doubts. I'm not sure if this was a Champions League game. I'm hoping it was, but it was a European game, right? And I'll tell you why I'm picking it before I reveal the individual, right? I'm picking this because one of the great joys of the game of football, right, is that a player that is not of the same standard as their opponent in terms of quality, in terms of how good they are, in terms of anything else, can overcome the opponent on that one game. They can win that 50-50 battle on that night. And on this night, a player who was a journeyman, slightly injury-prone journeyman, roasted an international fullback of high calibre. And I'm talking about the night that Stephen Pearson roasted Michael Reisiger on the left flank for Celtic. I remember watching it that night, and my mate Jamie McDade turned to me and he's like, he's probably among the best left-wing prospects in the world, isn't he? And I'm like, aye, mate, aye. He's absolutely brilliant. And obviously Stephen Pearson's career did not pan out to be like Pavel Nedved's or something. But that night, it was unbelievable. I can remember watching that and just, because we signed him for Motherwell, and I thought, like, it was like kind of fits and starts. He showed wee bits domestically, but he'd never really kind of seized the stage, like a bit like some of those other young players that I mentioned before. But that night, he was unbelievable. And Reisiger didn't know what had happened. And he was, he was the driving force behind that Celtic performance that night. And I can just, and why I look back on that so fondly is because of what I said. It's like that idea that any player in any given night can step up and can deliver. And that was the game of Stephen Pearson's career. I'm sure he'd probably agree.
That's what makes these games so special, isn't it? Like, thinking about what lies ahead this season, like, a Celtic player could have one of the moments where they write a story for themselves that people remember for years against one of these big teams.
I'll tell you another one. See, you're talking about the youngsters coming through the ranks. Was John Kennedy and that 0-0 against Barcelona. I mean, what a performance! Eh?
Second leg of the same tie, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and it is the UEFA Cup, by the way. But
cheating a wee bit. David Marshall that night, obviously.
Him and Marshall, yeah. What a performance it took.
And then in the Old Firm game, like, as well, they were amazing in that as well. It was at that point, obviously. I mean, John obviously didn't go on to have the career because of the injuries and stuff. David Marshall had a very good career, obviously a Scotland hero as well eventually. But I can just remember when they were breaking through, I thought we've got the backbone, an amazing defence for like 15 years. Didn't turn out that way.
No, I mean, we'll digress for this in a minute, but I thought David Marshall was going to be the Celtic goalkeeper for 15 years after the two games.
Then Arthur Boric came in.
Right, there you go. Stuart's gone Stephen Pearson in the UEFA Cup, but we'll let it pass. I've gone with Dembele. Asterisk against that one. I've gone with Dembele against Man City, and Martin's going with Liam Miller. That's a great shout for that category. Next one is best single moment of elation. This was the one. It was difficult for me to single out one. I suppose, as Martin says, there could be a lot of repetition and overlap here. I suppose goals are the best moment of elation. Martin, can you single one out?
I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not the only one that's gone for this one. So I'm going for match day 2 in 2007-2008. We're up against the mighty AC Milan. Again, just to name a few, Ambrosini, Gattuso, not one of our favourite players, Pirlo, Seedorf, Kaká, Inzaghi, and they've come to Celtic Park, and you're just looking about thinking, wow, I can't believe I'm so close to him or him or him. You know, they were everywhere, just superstars all around us.
European champions at the time as well.
European champions, you know, didn't expect much. Match day too early in the campaign, you're thinking, oh no, we're going to get absolutely trousered here. And of course, we got that late winner with Scott McDonald, and the scenes were wild, weren't they? It was fans on the pitch, and some of them misbehaving right enough, but the keeper going down, but it was pandemonium. So what a moment that was to get a goal late in the day against a team of that stature, just littered with superstars. I mean, you do come across some of these big teams and you look and think 50% of the team are pretty good. I think every single player in that team is a superstar. So what a result, what a performance, and what a way to win a game in the 90th minute.
Aye, absolutely. That's probably the worst bit of play acting I've ever seen on a football. Listen, we don't want fans on the pitch like going up to goalkeepers, but oh my God, he gets stretchered off and all that, and a neck brace and everything. Come on.
Vitor Baia was worse.
Well, Vitor Baia was worse, but at least he didn't get stretchered off. he like kind of admitted
I'd have paid to stretcher him off, man. He sat there for about 10 minutes.
I think a few Celtic supporters would have liked to put him in a condition where he needed stretchered off.
The significance of the game, of course, we went through second place, 9 points.
Yeah.
So we didn't realise that at the time, but that result got us second place. It helped get us second place with 9 points. So
yeah, massive. I'm going to go the full-time whistle in the 2-1 game against Barcelona. So I've managed to get it in somehow. But I mean that night is just incredible. But 2-0 when Tony Watt scores, you think we can't. This is no real. Like, we're not 2-0 up against Barcelona. Like, it's a glitch. Something's wrong here. But then when Messi scores with a couple of minutes to go, you're like, oh no, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get the win, even though we're 2-0 up a minute ago. So relief but elation at the end, because we'd beaten Barcelona, like, by many accounts, a lot of people's and a lot of people's opinion, the best team there's ever been, best club side there's ever been over that period. So incredible. That's mine.
Adam Matthews, he talking about individual performances as well. Adam Matthews against Lionel Messi that night, absolutely mental. My moment, actually, I have mentioned this already, and I wish I hadn't kind of shot my gun too early, but it was the Boruc save for the relief, and it was, you celebrated it almost like more than a goal, because it was like the usual, it's all going to come crashing down. Celtic are going through, like all of that kind of stuff's going through your head, and you're thinking, come on, it's Artur Boruc. If anybody can do this, it's him. And I was behind that goal, and I'm just sitting there like that, and then he saved it, and you're like, yes. And I can just remember thinking, we're actually doing it. We're going to beat them. This is happening. And that single moment is, in European terms, my favourite single moment as a Celtic fan. Unbelievable.
It's like you're 1-0 up twice, isn't it? You're 1-0 up, and then you're not 1-0 up, and we're still 1-0 up. It's like another goal. It really is.
Exactly.
What a moment that was. So there you go. Martin's gone. Scott McDonald's winner against AC Milan. I've gone full-time whistle on the 2-1 Barca game, and Stuart has gone with Boruc's penalty save against Man United. Right, so next up, we're going to talk about opposing players, the only sort of non-Celtic category, if you like. The best individual performance from an opposing player at Celtic Park in a Champions League game. Stuart, we'll start with you on this category, mate. What have you got for us?
Right, no, I'm panicking again, wondering if it's a UEFA Cup game.
Jesus.
Did we have Villarreal in the group stage?
Yeah.
We did, right. Juan Roman Riquelme did not sweat that night.
Well, he was... before you go any further, we had Villarreal in the group stage in, I think, 2008-9, and we played them in the UEFA Cup in 2004. And
I'm going with the 2004 game, if I'm honest, right? So, again, another asterisk, right? COVID season, whatever. Right?
We'll just change the title of the video to Best UEFA Cup Moments.
Best UEFA Cup moments as if, because I mean, it was better as the UEFA Cup before they made it the Europa League anyway. Back in the glory days of the competition, before rubbish mobs were getting to the final last season. That Riquelme game stands out because I can just remember watching a guy boss a game without breaking into a jog, and for me, it was art. It was art on a football pitch. That's what it was. It was orchestration. I mean, people talk about a midfield orchestrator, but normally that involves a bit of kind of closing down or like turning into space and breaking into a jog. Not once. He just used his body, he used his vision, and he used his technique, and he absolutely dominated against us. And it is the best performance I've ever seen for one player at Park. And look at the players that have played at Parkhead, right? And look at the players that have played against Celtic in Europe and all the competitions, right? Intertoto Cup, right? Whatever. But if you look for one individual performance that stands out for me, I think that has got to be the one. Just because, as I say, it was... I've never seen a performance of that type again at Parkhead by an opponent, where it's all to just do with no physicality, it's all to do with technique, and it's all to do with just sheer class, just oozing class.
Those are the best. I think they're the best footballers. See the guys that have the ability to play the game in their head, and they don't need to sprint and charge into tackles and
chess play.
Like they're just so clever. Their football intelligence and their technique just guides them through a game. Luka Modric is a player like that just now, who hopefully we might get to see at Celtic Park this season if the draw gives us what we want. But it's amazing to see a player who doesn't, because ordinarily the things you associate and the things you look for in a football player are that you want high energy, you want charging about the pitch, flying into tackles. At least in this country, that's what you associate as the basics of being a footballer. But when you see these guys that are just on another technical level where they can just glide through a game of football, it's amazing to watch. I'm going to go next before we come to you, Martin. Mine's is a bit of a left field shout. It's so difficult on these Champions League nights because you're so engaged in the game and so willing Celtic on to perform and to stay in the game and to get a goal and try and get a result that sometimes you don't really pay attention to how the opposition players are performing. But the one player that stands out for me is a Juventus player from the last 16 tie in 2013, and it was actually Claudio Marchisio. He was really, really good, and he was a bit like, I mean, not on the level of Riquelme, but he was a wee bit similar, like small midfield player, but played the game in his head. His vision was amazing. I think he set up at least one of the goals that night. He was just excellent, and everything that Juventus did kind of went through him. I remember that night going into the stadium thinking, why has the manager picked Efe Ambrose? Because he's just got back for the African Nations Cup about 2 years ago, and then 10 minutes in he gave away 2 goals. So the tie had got away for us before it even started, but he was a standout that night. And when I try and think back, Champions League games I've been at involving Celtic and opposition players, there's a lot of higher profile players. We've seen Messi and Iniesta and Xavi and these world class players for different teams, but that's the one that always springs to my mind. I know Rabiot was one that a lot of people loved when he played against us for PSG, but Marchisio is my left field shout for that category.
See, just before you go to Martin, one thing I want to say about that game is they were wrestling us at every second.
Oh, that was incredible.
That game. That was unbelievable. That is my abiding memory of that game, is the fact they were bear hugging us at set pieces.
Never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Before
was it 5-0 over the 2 legs, wasn't it? So it was fairly convincing, but as you say, just quite often you get that with Italian teams, sadly. They just strangle the game and they don't allow you to play football. And they nick the goals. You know, they're clinical when they get their chances as well. So it wasn't a 5-0 over the 2 legs, but that's what the record book says.
That's it. Martin, who have you got?
I've gone for the lazy option, which was based on an absolute trouncing over 2 legs, and gone with a player who you love to hate. It's not very often you get a player who's a superstar like a Henrik Larsson, who's just generally a nice guy. This guy's a very talented player, but one that you just want him to get sent off or halved every time he's on the ball. But for to go with Neymar on the 12-1 over the 2 legs, he was sensational. At the home game and away game, I think it was at 5-0 and 7-1 over the 2 legs. So I'm not his biggest fan, and I think he's been quite lucky in some of the teams he's played in. He does obviously have a lot of ability, but I don't put him in the same category as the likes of Messi and players like that. But on the performance over those 2 legs, he was clinical. He was really, really good. And the more angry we got, and the more we tried to snap him, and he just made us look silly, particularly in that game away from home. The only other player I remember being kind of blown away by was Ronaldinho way back, but it was probably because of who he was. And I just remember thinking, wow, you're 2 yards away from me. And I was really starstruck when I seen him, and he was a very talented player. But with regards to impact and the 12-1 over the 2 legs, I'm going to go with Neymar. It still keeps me up at night when I think back. I still have nightmares about those 2 games.
I'm sorry, mate. You've lost your legendary status in my speaking him any sort of accolade. That's it. So
I know. I don't like him. But he was good. He was good.
Guy.
He was. He also gets accolade one of the most unlikable footballers in the world as well. Right, so there you go. Martin has gone with Neymar. I've gone with Marchisio, and Stuart has gone with Juan Roman Riquelme. and the UEFA Cup asterisk is there on that one as well.
I should really have had a look at some data before this rather than just going off the top of my head.
No, we'll let it slide, mate. Right, next up is the most heartbreaking moment. Stuart, we'll start with you on this one. I had to think hard about this one, but I eventually got there, and there's one that stands out. So we
mentioned the one against Juve that I remembered inversely, because for some reason I remembered that as the game that put us out at the end, and I can remember Amoroso, as you say, he was linked with us.
He came on trial,
did he come on trial as well?
Mm-hmm.
Like 3-4 years later, which is just swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
But my one is sorry to interrupt you. Right, it was that period where Martin O'Neill was taking like renowned international football players on trial. Remember Rivaldo? Remember he tried to offer Rivaldo a trial?
Aye.
And I've listened to Carlo Ancelotti's book, and he talks about Rivaldo when he was AC Milan, and like if he ever tried to put him on the bench, he would like come to his office and say that like Rivaldo. He'd refer to himself in third person and say Rivaldo does not go on the bench.
Is that where Zlatan learnt it for?
Maybe. And Martin O'Neill tried to give him a trial, see if he's good enough to play for Celtic. It was at the end of his career, right enough. But anyway, I digress.
Right, so mine is the against Lyon, right? And I'm pretty sure this was a Champions League game.
It was.
And it's Balde getting penalised, and that's just, I can just remember thinking, don't do anything daft at the back, was what I had in my head. Like I can remember that being my thinking for about 10 minutes. And the thing about that Celtic team, right, is, I mean, the great thing about Ange Postecoglou is he's built a Celtic team that I feel that if we have a special European campaign this time, I will put that up alongside and near, if no, maybe no quite, but like near the Martin O'Neill sort of best teams. But forever, like it was never easy. It was forever fraught. Everyone was through as you said, like that start was a brilliant one, Martin, about was it 2-3 games you said? Sorry, we won by more than 2 goals or more. Was that right?
Yeah, 4 games. Well, 3 games we won by 2, and 1 game we won by 3. So it was always tight, and that's over 60 games. That's
that's over the whole thing, right? But I can just remember that Martin O'Neill team. You would always have the hope because we always had the ability. We could score and we could defend, but we were always liable to have a lapse or a mistake, or Rob Douglas coming out with his eyes closed trying to punch across,
especially away from home. But I can just remember Balde in the Lyon game and just remembering like my stomach hitting the floor at that point. And that was just like the utter dejection, because that was the year I thought we had a real chance that time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that not another situation, Martin? You've mentioned a couple of these where a 2-2 draw in that game would have took us to the last 16.
I mean, I've got it as well, so it's a snap for this one. So match day 6, and we're in with Bayern Munich, Lyon and Anderlecht, and a 2-2 would have done us, Paul. So we're dumped out the Champions League that night, and controversial penalty, 85 minutes into the game. So we're 1-0 down, back to 1-1, 2-1 down, back to 2-2 in 75 minutes, and you're thinking, just hold out for 15 minutes. And the Baldy handball. But the famous quote was from Martin O'Neill. He said the Lyon players all turned round, expected a goal kick, and nobody thought it was a penalty. There wasn't a single claim for a penalty. Now Baldy's hand shouldn't have been where it was. There was nobody near him. He could have had a cigarette. There was nobody near him, but no, he chose to put his hand out, and the referee panicked and gave a penalty. I had a nightmare that night. I had all the match tickets, and all the guys had gone over 2 or 3 days before the match, and I was going over on the day of the match, and there was really bad weather in London, so my flight was going Edinburgh, London over to Lyon, and the flights were cancelled in London, so to buy another flight via Amsterdam, I went to Amsterdam. That flight was delayed as well. The connecting flight was delayed, so I gets into Lyon with all the match tickets for 20 odd guys, pouring the rain, and I got there just in time for kick-off, and some of the guys are in the pub, other guys had bought tickets outside the match, and I'm running about trying to find everybody to give them the match tickets, and gets in round about half time. And then we go 2-1 up, and I think, yeah, beauty. It's been worth all the hassle and the expense, an extra £400 for flights and all that stuff. And then half the tickets still in my pocket because the guys had disappeared to the pub. I thought, yes, it's going to be worth it. We're going to qualify. And then Bobo Ball, they gave me a wee wave in the crowd. Couldn't believe it. So Lyon's not my favourite place. Between that and Henrik Larsson breaking his leg in a previous visit to Lyon, it's not my favourite place for sure. So Yeah. I had that one and I had the UV one. UV one was just, we were cheated that night, and we weren't allowed to drink in UV when we went over there. There was a ban on drinking. We wondered why, but we got to the stadium and they take all your coins off, that stuff. And I thought, I'm not being very friendly to us. But when we went to the stadium, we realised why, because the Juventus fans were all Rangers tops and were throwing bottles of water at us, and they didn't take to us at all. So in that particular game, to be 2-0 down and come back to 2-2, you can just imagine after getting treated that way by the locals and the police and the Italians and all the rest of it, we were just in heaven. Absolutely loving it. And then same situation as Leon, we give away that penalty, and neither of those penalties were penalties. That's the bit that really sticks in your throat. And it was game one versus game 6, but game 1, our first game in the Champions League, that would have got us through. A draw would have got us through. And in game 6 against Leon, a draw would have got us through. I know these things happen, but just those two were the
but they always seem to happen at Celtic. That was the problem, right? And then you get Lubos Mikel's performance in the 2003 UEFA Cup final, which to this day remains the worst referee. And this is no Celtic tinted glasses. That is the worst refereeing performance I have ever seen in my life. It's also the biggest gamesmanship I've ever seen in my life for a single team. Porto won the trophy, but football didn't win.
You're determined to make this into a UEFA Cup episode, aren't you?
I don't care, mate. I'm slamming Lubos Mikel in this episode. If we're going to have a go at refs and controversial decisions, that was just beyond the pale.
I know. We could get a whole episode on that one. Just on that Leon penalty, it was Juninho that stepped up to it, and he was never, ever, ever going to miss, was he?
No.
Am I right in saying Magnus Hedman was in goals that night? Because Juninho scored a free kick they should never have scored as well.
Yeah, miles out. It
was like miles out and over a sort of crossing position for the left hand side, and he somehow managed to scoop it over. Hedman. Yeah. I know his technique was unbelievable, but
everybody goes on about that. See that Roberto Carlos one to La Tournois that bent round the wall, right? Hernan Bucano did tons of them. He's all the time. He did it all the time. That was what he did. He was. I mean, we've been talking about Nakamura. Juninho Pernambucano is one of the best free kick takers all the time, in my opinion, man. Unbelievable football.
Absolutely. Right. My most heartbreaking moment, as I said at the start of this category, I was racking my brains and I'm thinking, so obviously there's been a lot of hard moments in some of these Champions League games, but I couldn't really think of one. And then as soon as I remembered this one, I was like, obviously that's it. And this is one of the odd choices that I've made where I wasn't at the game, I was watching it on telly because I was about 9 or 10 years old. But it's Henrik Larsson coming back to score against Celtic for Barcelona. That was genuine heartbreak. That was 10-year-old Paul in tears in the living room. I couldn't even. I was like, what? This can't be happening. How can my hero be back to score against Celtic? And Alan Thompson assist as well with the short header back on it. And they beat us 3-1 that night. But that stands out as the most heartbreaking Champions League moment for me.
That's interesting because my reaction to that was different. I don't know about you, Martin. It's maybe because I'm slightly older than you, Paul. I can remember his interview after it. He said the crowd said Bobo's going to get you, so I just thought I'd go and score, right? And it's like, all right, Henrik, I get you. But I remember being very conflicted. Like I remember thinking, oh no, but
it's
Larsson. It's like what do you do? Like obviously the kind of the gutter feeling overrode the other one, but like I remember feeling genuine conflict because it was Larsson. It was almost like, well, you kind of deserve it. It's like you deserve your moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, but obviously, like, why to win the game of football? But I remember being conflicted. So, what about you, Martin? Can you remember how you felt in that moment? Because I feel weird.
I can. I mean, I love the guy so much, and still love him the same as we all do to this day. Just everything about him, the way he carried himself. You know, he never moaned to referees. He was an unselfish player, a good team player. His work ethic was incredible. Lovely guy off the pitch. You know, good with the fans. He gave a large part of his life to us. He brought his young family up in Scotland, committed to the club. He could have gone to much bigger clubs. You know, I can't say a bad word about the guy. So, despite the fact I was gutted, my feeling of being pleased for Henrik Larsson doing well for Barcelona. I mean, I remember Jeff Sterling saying, classic story this one, right? Euro 2004, Jeff Sterling, you know, this famous superstar. It's on the telly every week. Was previewing Sweden versus Bulgaria, I think it was. And they said, "Oh, it's one of those games where you'd rather go shopping with the wife. You'd rather go to IKEA." I suppose one of the standout players could be Henrik Larsson, but you know he's a big fish in a small pond. There's rumours that he's wanting to go to other clubs, but there's hardly a rush for his signature. I don't know if you remember the game. Sweden won 5-0. Henrik Larsson scored a diving header. Man of the match. Everybody was raving about him. He got asked in an interview either after that game or during the course of the tournament, you know, who would he like to go to? And he said, when I was young, I quite liked Barcelona. He then goes to Barcelona, wins them the European Cup. Henri says that it was down to him and only him that they won the European Cup.
Alex Ferguson that game to the bench.
Alex Ferguson takes him to Man United. So because you love him so much, every single step of his career after that, you just want him to do well. So I was pleased for him that night. As much as I was disappointed as a Celtic fan, I was pleased for Henrik Larsson because I wanted him to do well and everything that he did after he left us. So I was a bit mixed emotions as well. But I know where Paul's coming from, and a lot of people would have felt the same, for sure.
Yeah. Do you know the other thing that stands out to me about that game? There's a spine-tingling rendition of Hail Hail as Larsson is standing at the side of the pitch waiting to come on. And you can just feel that because everybody knows it's him coming on, they're singing the Celtic song. And it's like, it's goosebump stuff. Bonus points for who got the other Barcelona goals that night.
See, even before we come to that, like, do you know, even talking about this is making me a bit emotional. I'm not going to lie. It's like, see that era of Celtic, I feel such a strong affinity to it that, like, you know that feeling, I'm not going to greet, but you get that feeling of like pent-up emotion in your chest. I'm getting that just for talking about this. Other Barcelona goals that night, Deco.
Yes.
Oh, Deco, aye. Did he get both?
No.
Not just one.
Frenchman.
Defender?
No.
You need to use it. Oh, wait.
Oh.
The guy that was at Monaco.
Yes. Ludovic Julie.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Right. So there you go. Martin and Stuart have both gone with the 3-2 defeat in Lyon that denied Celtic passes to the last 16. And I've gone with Henrik Larsson coming back to haunt us at Celtic Park for Barcelona. Right. We've reached the final category. I'm sure there's going to be many contenders here for the guys. It is the best atmosphere, the best Champions League atmosphere. Everybody talks about it. Opposition players, opposition fans. One of the most renowned atmospheres in world football, Celtic Park in a Champions League night. But Martin, is there one game that stands out in terms of atmosphere above all else?
I think you've nailed it. I've tried to talk about away games tonight because I've been lucky enough to go to most of them in the Champions League during that 60-game run. But you cannot talk about atmosphere and go anywhere other than Celtic Park. The ones that stand out the most for me, I mean, it's great when you play your Barcelonas and your Bayern Munich and these big teams. But there's a little bit apprehension as well, unintentionally. There's a wee bit apprehension because it's a wee bit like playing Millwall away in the Cup. You know, you're looking forward to it, but you're thinking, I'm going to get chased around the city. So it's one of those, you know, you play the big teams, you're thinking, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm worried we're going to get trounced. So the ones I enjoy the most are the Battle of Britain. So, you know, brilliant memories and other competitions, not the Champions League, when we played Liverpool and, you know, some of these teams and tucked them away. But in the Champions League, and I know we've talked a little bit about it earlier on, but that Man City night, that was special. You know, that again, they swaggered into Celtic Park. You know, we are the top dogs of England, and Guardiola and all that he brings, a likeable guy, but definitely an arrogance about him. So that was match day 2, I think, and just the way that game panned out, Paul, you've touched on it already. You know, that early goal for Celtic. So you've got your walk on and the pre-match atmosphere and the build-up and the excitement, then an early goal. I mean, it was just, I had my wee boy with me and he goes to most of the games, but I'm not entirely sure what age he was back then, but he was really young. So I remember watching it a little bit through his eyes as well, and almost watching him as much as I was watching the game and thinking what a magic experience it would be for him. But for me it was as well. And then it goes 1-0, 2-1, 2-0, and it's only 28 minutes in. 28 minutes in, it's 2-0, and you're thinking, wow, is this actually happening? Is this the night before the game and I'm dreaming this happening? And then, of course, 3-2 and 3-0. And there was a bit to go at the end. It was slightly different in that last 30 minutes. And you could take that to the next game and say the 1-0 was just a continuation, wasn't it? Because we went down there and I think they were thinking, oh, well, we'll show them who's boss. And they didn't. You know, we're brilliant down there as well. And the atmosphere down there was fantastic. And that away end, it was I've never seen a drunker away end in my life. I think, in fact, it was just down the road and people are jumping on buses or whatever and enjoying themselves. But you cannot beat that atmosphere at Celtic Park. I mean, what a night that was. And there's been loads of those. We've been lucky enough that, it wasn't unusual. It wasn't like we've never experienced an atmosphere like that, but it was just start to finish. The early goal, the fact that probably a lot of people expected Man City to get the better of us. You said it earlier on, Stuart, I think they'd won every game up until the point they came to us. And we sent them down the road with a lot to think about. And the fact it was early on in that campaign, we only got 3 points in that campaign, and 2 of them were off Man City. We finished in 4th place, so it wasn't a successful campaign. But when it came to that Battle of Britain, we very rarely disappoint, and we didn't that night. What a special night!
Yeah, absolutely. Stuart, what you got?
Right. 3 UEFA Cup shouts, then an actual Champions League one. Right, so you mentioned Battle of Britain, Martin. I can remember how arrogant Graham Souness was. Do you remember how arrogant Graham Souness was before the Blackburn game? And I can just remember, I hope we stuffed him, and we absolutely did. And then I'm not sure, were you at Anfield for the away game, presumably? Aye. I mean, what a night that was! 2 amazing goals for Celtic that night. Then the other UEFA Cup one, which I think might be my favourite rendition of "You'll Never Walk Alone Ever," and it had added significance because it was just after the Madrid. It might have been. It was either the day before or the same day as the Madrid train bombing. So Barcelona came to Celtic, and for all the rivalry that there is, a terrorist atrocity happening in your country, man. You feel it. You know what I mean? And it seemed like there was just an added poignance to it that night. It was almost like we were singing it for the Barca fans. And I think that's my favourite ever rendition of "You'll Never Walk Alone" at Celtic Park. But for single best atmosphere, it's the Glitch game, mate. It's got to be. It's like that. We don't win that game without the fans. I genuinely believe that, because it's like Glasgow's green and white, it's getting bellowed, you know what I mean? And the stadium was gone for 90 minutes. It was non-stop, and it was there, and it was like that. The fervent backing, when Wanyama did it, it's like, oh, what's happening here? We've got a chance here, right? So then you get right behind them. That way, you've got to punctuate the game in the right areas, right, to make sure that you get the atmosphere perfect. And Celtic did it, because the fans lift the team before the game, carry them through that first period. Then we get the goal at the right time to energise the whole ground. Everybody starts believing. Tony Watt scores, and the place just goes radio rental ballistic, beyond anything that's ever been seen before. The added factor of the 125th anniversary, it was just a culmination of so many things coming together to make for one of the most special atmospheres there has been in the history of the game of football. I truly, truly believe that. We don't win that game without the fans that night. And it is my favourite atmosphere. I wasn't there, but I felt every bit of it watching it. And having, that way, if you've been to Celtic Park on a night like that, you can almost be there as sort of, I don't know, in kind of a sort of ghost-like way. It's like you almost, you know what you're missing, and you can kind of half feel it. And if you're watching it with other Celtic fans, that feeling intensifies. That night was like that. And then to come away with the result was just crazy. So that is, for me, I don't even think, I don't accept any other answer. That is the best atmosphere there has ever been at that stadium.
Yeah, Stuart, see the Liverpool comparison, because there's the comparisons all the time about, and the famous players tell us Celtic Park's the best by a mile, but Liverpool often maintain, that theirs is the best. So that Liverpool game, the 2-0, we had played Rangers a couple of games back to back. We played them in the Cup, and I think it was a 3-2 defeat at Hearts and got sent off, but we played them in the league at Celtic Park, and I think we beat them 2-0. And I remember being in the lounge at Celtic Park after it and listening to Mark Lawrence, and he said it's one thing beating Rangers at home and a Glasgow derby, he said, but nobody comes to Anfield on a European night and comes away with a victory. It just doesn't happen. Celtic have got absolutely no chance. And that stuck in my head as I was standing there that night at Anfield and going into the game a little bit apprehensive, because I wanted to come away with a victory. But what I can say, and I can say this without having the Celtic tinted glasses on, the atmosphere that night, and it was a massive game. And I've been at other big games at Anfield when Celtic haven't been there and watched Liverpool play European games. It's not 10% the atmosphere of what we create at Celtic Park. It comes nowhere near. And that night was a special atmosphere, but nothing compared to Celtic Park and the games that we're talking about. And it was great to be there, the whole stadium singing Walk On, the rest of it. And in the Celtic end, we got 2,000 fans, but you could really sense it. Anfield, it's not like Barcelona where you can't see what's going on. You're in amongst it, but nothing compared to Celtic Park. Despite the fact that was a special night, we won 2-0, as you know, the Hartson goal. Celebrated for about half an hour after that goal. It was wild celebrations in that section of the Celtic fans, but still nothing compared to what we're talking about. Your Man Cities and your Barcelonas at Celtic Park. Nowhere near.
Just before we get your answer, Paul, what is it you think is so special? Like, because I sometimes think it's see the material that the stadium is built out of is, I don't know if this was by design. I think it was. Is it reverberates the noise, right? So all the noise kind of gathers in a place, and then you've just got this cauldron of colour and fever, and like where it is in Glasgow, like, there's just so many factors. Like even before they built the Celtic Way and all the kind of bells and whistles it's got now, it was a special stadium, and it just reverberates noise. So I mean, the fans are obviously a massive part of that, but it's almost like everything about the stadium is designed to create that cauldron. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you feel that way.
I suppose the question would then be 25 years ago, was it well, maybe wasn't as good, but was it still considered as one of the best in Europe? And was it better than your Liverpool, pre whatever it was, 1995 stadium was built, wasn't it? 94, 95. So we'd need to remember that far back to say, was it as good? I don't think it was as good, but was it still the best in Europe, or one of the best in Europe? I think
still the best fans, I would say.
Best fans. Yeah, it comes down to us, doesn't it? The best fans.
Aye, absolutely. I need to go with the 2-1 Barca game as well. The only thing I can add to really what Stuart said about it is, I think that was the first game that I had ever been involved in like a full stadium display at Celtic Park. I used to see them in other games in Europe and think like that'd be amazing if we did that at Celtic Park. And I remember going in early that night because we were playing Barcelona and I was fascinated by that team and I wanted to watch a warm up and do all that stuff. And when I got in, I could see that like the silhouette of the display, because all the bits of paper were like on the seats, so I could see that it looked amazing without actually telling what it was until it was held up, obviously. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I think, on an episode that I take like if I'm part of a display, I take the bit of paper home with me and I write on it what game it was and I keep it. And this links back to one of my earlier choices for single best moment elation being full time. I left my bit of paper for that display under my seat that night because I was so carried away at the final whistle. But that for me is just that I had a feeling when I seen the display when I got in the stadium that something was going to happen. And it sounds ridiculous and you can't explain it and you can't justify why that feeling was there, but I thought maybe we'll win the night. And it's intangible. As I say, you can't put your finger on why or what it is that makes you feel like that. But I think that kind of sums up what makes Celtic Park special on nights like that.
Absolutely. See that display as well. Look, it's one that as soon as you close your eyes, you can picture it in your head. And look, there's been loads of good like tifos. I think the terminology is, like, if you want the buzzword bingo, like there's been loads of them, and loads of them have been really good. None of them will ever top that night, because I loved that shirt, I loved that badge, and you had that in the kind of centre on the way that it stretched around the stadium. Just everything about it was judged to perfection. The people who organised that deserve massive, massive credit, because it's like the iconic, for me, that is, and it's weird because normally when you think back to a game like that, it will be a moment in the game that will be the iconic image, like Tony Watt scoring Wanyama or whatever, right? Fraser Forster obviously making great saves. But my iconic image of that game is that display.
Yeah.
Aye, it was absolutely amazing. So there you go. That finalises the last category. Stuart and I have both gone 2-1 against Barcelona, and Martin has gone for the 3-3 game against...
At least I went for a Champions League game this time.
Aye, listen, it makes a change. Aye, that rounds up all the categories. Before we finish off, boys, and we've gone for longer than ever now, but I'm just absolutely buzzing for this Champions League campaign. We've talked about so many things through this episode. And one of the things I thought, Martin, when you talked about that Martin O'Neill interview, after that away game against Juventus in the first group stage. That's one of the most iconic interviews for a Celtic manager ever. And it's a game we get beat in, but it's just the manner of it. Like, so many people remember that interview as like a really iconic Celtic Champions League moment. And I'm just buzzing for what wee things like that might unfold this season, because this is what these games do. They just bring out like standout moments that people go on to talk about for years, and I can't wait to see what happens this season.
Because I think everybody involved in this, right? So we're excited, and as you say, we've talked for a lot longer than what we planned, and we're laughing the other day saying how many sleeps, as if we're kids at Christmas. This is what the Champions League does to you, and we've been lucky enough to play in it 10 times, and this will be our 11th campaign, but because we haven't done quite so well and been in it as often in the last few years, we appreciate it even more. But it does it to us, it does it to all the fans involved, it does it to the manager, the players. Martin O'Neill was a special manager, but he was normally very professional, very diplomatic, very controlled, but he essentially lost the plot that night because he was so emotionally attached to everything that comes with the Champions League. And Ange will be the same. Again, he's normally very diplomatic, carries himself very well, very professional. He's not got the behaviours that Neil Lennon brought, but I'm sure at times he'll become very, very animated in it as well, because you just get caught up in the whole journey and excitement and the desperate to do well, and our emotions will be all over the place in the next, whatever it is, two to 3 months.
Without a doubt.
We can't wait.
Do you know what I'd say, Matt? What I love is, see the moment you mentioned Martin O'Neill's name, you put your glasses on. It was so fitting. It was, the timing couldn't have been better. I think, see Ange Postecoglou, right? However long he's going to be Celtic manager, it's going to be special. This is a special time in the history of Celtic Football Club. He's a special football manager. When we won, he said, best on the planet. That was his words when he was talking to the stadium after we won the title last season. He knows what this football club's about, right? He gets it. He gets it, and that's why we get him. That's why we're invested, as well as his football and players that he's brought in and all that stuff. It's about him as well, right? He's not experienced the Champions League Celtic yet. So see if we can lift it. And I think that's the other thing. It almost feels like it's kind of like the boxer that's been battered for 3 rounds or 4 rounds or however long we've been getting pasted in the Champions League. We're lifting ourselves up off the canvas, and we are going to go and we are going to stand toe-to-toe with whoever we come up against. And I back us to beat at least one big team at Parkhead in this campaign, because Angie's team is capable scoring goals, and that is what you need to do. I mean, it's a very basic thing, but if you can go and you can score against anyone, and I believe that this team can score against anyone, then you've got a chance. And it's been a long time since, as a Celtic fan, getting into a Champions League campaign, I've felt we've got a real chance of maybe doing something in this group here. And I think that's it. It's like, it feels like we're about to go and restore some pride. That's why the buzz is as big as it is. And Ange Ball, as they call it in the Champions League, can't wait, man.
I hope so, mate. I hope we are going to restore some pride. That rounds up this special Champions League build-up episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've certainly enjoyed the last hour or so talking through all of these memories with the guys. Like this video, comment with your own thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and it is only one more sleep. We'll be back with you tomorrow for the live stream of the group stage draw, so join us for that. Thank you.